How you think is the most important thing about you.
Welcome to F1 session 14. This session is on submitting to authority. You've already memorized this verse out of Romans chapter 13. So we're jumping there. We're going to start talking a little bit about Romans chapter 13, 1 through 2. We're going to be spending this session plus our next two sessions on this concept and this principle in the kingdom of submitting to authority. Remember, we're learning here in F1 how to think in the kingdom of heaven, because our thoughts lead to our feelings to beliefs, our beliefs then lead to our actions. If we want to act right in the kingdom of God, we have to first learn how to think in the kingdom of God. So, as we've walked through this process of Romans chapter 11, all right, verses 33 through 36, we learned how this revelation that we need so that we can have this way of thinking in Romans 12, verses 1 through 3. As we have this way of thinking in Romans 12, verses 1 through 3, we can then just walk daily in the fruit of Romans 12, 9 through 21. Okay? And what that does, it's functioning in that level of fruit in our life that lays the foundation for us then to step into chapter 13 and begin to submit to the authorities that God has delegated here on earth. Now, this can be a hard session, especially if you're like me. It's going to be a hard session because as I've told you, I did not want to submit to authority. Dadgummit, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You know, I wouldn't put up with that, and if that person says this, then I'm just going to do that, and I just wanted to bow up. Which again, it is what it is. It's not like God went, well, I can't use you, Clay, because God used all of that junk in my life to bring about the fruit that I get to enjoy today. Remember, we talked about this in the last session. He used that evil junk growing up in my life and came to fruition, while at the same time there were so many good things that were growing in my life. Till eventually I was able to see it for what it was worth and go, oh, I do not want that. Throw my hands in surrender. Lord, I will submit to you. Guys, it took me about 35 years to get to this point that we're talking about right now, to be able to submit to authority. And life was pretty tough. There was a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth, a lot of struggle that I had to go through because I was hard-headed, because I was defiant, because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. But at the same time, I was going, Lord, please, remember, search me and know me. Try me and and let me know if there's any wicked way in me. Lead me in your way that's everlasting. So, I love the Lord. I was sincere about that. But I just had a lot of junk that needed to be worked out of my life. So I hope that you will enjoy this. I hope it will bring a freedom in your life that you've never experienced before. And once again, it's this gateway of submission to authority that actually allows us to enter into this thing called the kingdom of heaven here today. We don't have to wait for Jesus to come back and then we'll live in His kingdom. We can live in His kingdom today, every day, as we walk through our days. It's possible right here, but we have to go through this doorway called submission to authority. And that can be difficult for a lot of us. So, let's take a look at our verse really quick. Everyone must submit himself, Romans chapter 13, verse 1. Everyone, okay, everyone, even you, everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities. We're not just talking about God here up in heaven, His divine authority. We're talking about His governing authorities here. And we're not just talking about the President of the United States, even though people really struggle with that. We're talking about governing authorities which go from the United States all the way down to our state authorities and policemen, to our teachers, our boss, our parents. It even comes right into our front room, into our households, and says, I need to obey mom and dad. Ugh, you know? But I don't want to obey mom and dad. I will obey God, but I won't obey them. Man, that won't work. That is a trap right there. In fact, if you're a young kid, if you're anywhere from 12 to 21, 22 years old, the best way for you to walk in the kingdom of God, the best way for you to personify heaven is to obey your mom and dad. Don't be thinking that you're going to grow and be some strong Christian and yet continue to be in disobedience to mom and dad. It just doesn't work that way. All right? You can think it will, but it doesn't. All right? And the Holy Spirit will convict you on that later on. So, for there is no authority except that which is God established, which God has established. There is no authority except that which God has established. It's very important. We're going to be hammering on that quite a bit. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment upon themselves. Man, so here we go, talking about this issue of authority. Have you struggled with authority? Can you kind of relate to a lot of the stories that I've been talking about when I've kind of bowed up and not wanted to do what people have told me to do? And especially, man, someone tell me what to do, immediately I just want to do the opposite. You know, it's just in me to go there. Even had an experience one time, and this wasn't even too long ago, but I found myself at the Tulsa State Fair. All right, catch this now. Tulsa State Fair, what they call the sugar show, which is all the wedding cakes and, you know, all those really, really elaborate cake boss type of things that are just beautiful. Well, I'm there with my wife, and I'm there with one of the college kids that was in our discipleship training program at the time. And I was also there with probably my then maybe 5-6-year-old daughter. All right. And I had on my sweatshirt from the ministry that I was involved in, trying to be a good representative and everything as we were there at the Tulsa State Fair. Well, we're there looking at the cakes, and there's ropes around all the cakes because they don't want you to get too close. And I lean across the rope, and I lean toward the cake and go, look at this part right here, hon. And all of a sudden I hear this voice behind me go, sir, please step away from the cake. Oh, and immediately, I mean, several of you probably already laughing. You know what I want to do. I want to move toward the cake just because someone has said step away. So I go, it's okay. I'm fine. I'm not going to touch it. Sir, please step away from the cake. You could push it. You could touch it. You could knock it over. And so I'm going, all right, I'm going to have to deal with this person. Again, it's starting to rise up in me. And I turn around and I get into an argument. I'm not going to touch the cake. Well, sir, you don't know if someone could bump you and knock you into the cake. You know, and again, here comes sarcasm. Well, you don't know if someone's going to push you into the cake either from where you are. Sir, just please step away from the cake. Ma'am, I am not going to touch the cake. And I go again, sir, please. And I turn around, and again, sarcasm. What are you, the cake police? And of course, she's very serious at this point. Yes, I am. And I continue with the sarcasm. Well, I'm going to need to see a badge. What am I doing? My young daughter is there. I've got one of these college kids with us. My wife is there. I've got the sweatshirt on. I'm going to need to see a badge. And about that time, it's like some scales fell from my eyes, and I realized, Clay, what are you doing? What are you doing? Relax and just submit to the cake police's authority. Quit trying to do things on your own. So it's at that point where I immediately go, oh, you know, I'm sorry. You're right. I will back away from the cake. I'm sorry that I'm causing such a scene here. You know, so I backed away and tried to save a little bit of face. But, oh, I probably didn't mention this. She was in a wheelchair. That's right. That was me arguing. And so now when I say, oh, you don't know if someone's going to push you into the cake either, you know, it kind of brings a whole new meaning to that. So again, there's just stuff in me when people say, sir, step away from the cake, that I just want to do it because they told me not to do it. It's just, I don't like that. But I can find it pretty quick. And you may be the same. You may be the same. Right now, that story's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's very embarrassing. I mean, I'm just going, man, what was I doing? What was I doing pushing when I didn't need to? But again, because there's still that part in me that just, I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to submit to authority. Do you find yourself in the same spot? Can you think of a time, maybe not in the very distant past, where you can remember not wanting to submit to authority? And maybe even full-on disobeying authority and knowing it. It's in us to do it. So here we have this verse, everyone must submit to the governing authority. What's up with this? Why do you think that's there? Why would God say this? Why would God put people in charge of me? You know, don't they know I can do it on my own? Well, let's dive into this a little bit. How am I supposed to fulfill this command? And eventually, if I'm not careful, I can make this really complex and really difficult. Oh, what's the secret on obeying? And what's the secret to submission? It's like, the secret to submission is do it, do it. But because I don't want to do it, I want to make it all difficult and hard and try to get around corners and cut corners and all that kind of stuff. And it just doesn't work that way. But too often, I want to see, and here's I think one of the things for me that really made a difference. Too often, I want to see authority as a person. Okay? I want to see authority as a person and not an established position by God. I want to see it as a person rather than a position. And I want to put a face on authority rather than see it as a pillar that actually holds up the entire house of God. You see, because without authority, the house falls immediately. God's kingdom cannot function unless His authority is in place. We're going to get into this more and more as we walk through these next 3 sessions. So, most often my struggle then is not so much with the authority, with the position, but it's with the person that's in authority. Can you relate to that? In fact, if that person asked me to do something, I wouldn't mind doing it. But that person, don't be telling me what to do. I don't care what you tell me. I'm not going to do anything you tell me. Even though they're my boss, they're my parent, they're in a position of authority over me. It says here again that there is no authority except that which God has established. But again, I want to go, no. This is an evil authority. Okay? And because they're evil, because they are what I have determined as evil, I don't have to obey them. I don't have to submit to them. I kind of come to that conclusion on my own. But it says here that God has established all authority. All authority. But here I go, I'm wanting to choose who I'm going to submit to and who I'm not going to submit to. So most of my struggles are not with the authority, but with the person in authority. And my main question is, well, what if they tell me to do something bad? That's the rationale. That's the logic that I want to bring to play. Well, what if they tell me to go kill someone? See? So I should be careful who I submit to, and I shouldn't submit to every authority because they may tell me to go kill someone, and that would be bad. Probably hasn't happened. So let's not go there. Let's not go to these hypotheticals where we are looking for a way to get out of the law of the Word. Okay? Submit. Everyone must submit to the governing authorities. It's interesting what happens when I reduce authority to a person. Okay, catch that. When I reduce this established position that God has to a person, now I have the right to either obey or not to obey because I can decide whether that person is worthy of my submission or not. But the Word doesn't say anything about that. The Word says everyone must submit to the governing authorities. Everyone. I can decide whether I think the person in authority is good or bad, and therefore I can decide whether or not I should obey them. Again, I go to this measurement of good and bad because I've grown up with that. And I perceive you as being bad, and so I don't have to obey you because you're bad. Now, if you were good, then I'd have to obey, but you're not, so I don't. And yesterday I thought you were good, but today now you're telling me to go clean toilets, and that's bad, so I shouldn't have to obey you. Or yesterday I was feeling fine, but today I don't feel so good. I'm kind of tired, and now you're telling me to do some things that are hard, and I don't want to do them, so I'm going to excuse myself from having to submit to you. It just doesn't work that way. But we think it does. That's the key. We think it does. We think we can continue to grow and be established and yet not have to submit to authority. Again, what we've done is push the boundaries until eventually we have become our own authority. And so the authority that I'm obeying is me. I have decided what's best for me to do, and I'm not going to let you tell me what to do. So we're obeying authority, but it's me. I have become the authority. And again, it's really slick, but somehow we rationalize it that way. That I'm going to obey me. I have become my authority because, see if you can relate to this, because I know better. I know better. Mom and Dad want me to get in at a certain time, but I know better. It'll be just fine if I do this. My teachers want me to do this or that, but I know better, so I'm going to do this other thing. My boss tells me that I need to do X and Y, but I know better, so I'm going to do Z. Or I'm not going to do X and Y to the fullest. You guys, the way that we respond to the delegated authority here on earth is the same way that we will respond to God's authority in heaven. Make no mistake. There's no way for me to, I'm doing great with my submission to God. It's just the people that I struggle with. It doesn't work that way. You see, God sent His delegated authority here on earth to train us and to show us how we are responding to His divine authority. So however I'm responding here is a mirror of how I'm responding there. Okay? It's an interesting point to consider there. Authority is much more than just a person. All authority is established by God. All authority is instituted by God. All authority is ordained by God. All authority is anointed by God. All authority is God's idea. And God has all authority. He is the ruler. He is the designer. He is the creator of authority, as it says in Matthew 28. But He delegates His authority to people here on earth. So here you have this all-powerful, all-authority God in heaven delegating authority here on earth. Now, is it possible for man in our fallen state to misuse God's ordained authority? Yes, it is. But again, just because man misuses God's authority does not give me permission to not submit, because it's still God ordained. It's still God's delegated authority. Just because they are misusing it doesn't give me the right to not submit to it, unless I have reduced authority to the person. That's where I get this caveat, or that's where I get this excuse to not have to obey, because I've reduced His authority to the person that's standing in front of me right now, telling me to back away from the cake. You know, and I think all of a sudden I can get sarcastic. But all authority was established and anointed and put in place by God. And He puts it in place, catch this, He puts His delegated authority in place to teach me how to respond to Him. You guys, if I don't learn how to, the very first authority in my life is my mom and dad. Am I able to respond well to their authority? You know, it's important. I mean, what is it? It's the only commandment that comes with a promise. Honor your mother and father. Okay? And you will enjoy a long life. I mean, this is a good thing to do. Now again, I know that there are definitely situations out there where moms and dads are like not good and stuff like that. And it makes it difficult to obey. But just because people are misusing their authority does not give me the excuse of not submitting to authority. God's purpose in giving authority to man is so that man will use it to show His glory. That's the purpose. And that's why He says, that's why the Word says, don't all of you think that you just want to run and grab authority. Because if I give you authority, I'm giving it to you with the purpose that you will reveal my glory and my name here on earth. And if you use your authority for your own gain, you are not showing God's glory. And there will be judgment on that person in authority or that group that's in authority. Okay? Things just happen that way. Can you imagine what it would be like if all authority on earth would use their authority to bring glory to the name of God? What would happen on this globe if all authority on earth would be used to glorify the name of God? I mean, that would be incredible. It would be insane. What would happen here on earth? That's coming. In the future, that is exactly what is coming. Just like we talked about in the last session, there will be evil authority that will grow up and good authority that will grow up at the same time. And evil will be incredibly evil. It will no longer be hiding in the dark. It will be right out there in the open. And it'll be something. It'll be really, really bad. But at the same time, good will be crazy good. It'll be awesome. And again, it's not a time for us to be scared. Oh no, what are we going to do? Okay? Because there will be no fear that darkness is going to overcome evil. Because we will know that light always overcomes the darkness. But you guys, just because there are people that misuse God's delegated authority does not give us permission to not submit to it. The plan is always for God to have divine authority and delegate it to man. That has always been the plan, and He delegates it so that we can see the glory of God. That's why He's done it. It's always been the plan. And just because men here on earth in their fallen state misuse that authority doesn't mean that God has scrapped the plan. Okay? The plan is still in place. Authority is the great test of man's heart. How are you going to respond to it? And how are you going to use it? You see? Because get this, and you may want to write this down. You can only walk in the amount of authority that you're willing to walk under. Okay, let me say that again. You can only walk in the amount of authority that you're willing to walk under. Now again, that was a principle that I didn't catch until I was much older in life. But you can get it here at this point of your discipleship training. You can get it right here that, Lord, I want to walk in a greater measure of influence here on earth. I want to walk with your authority. Remember, Jesus gave the disciples authority, but He only gave them authority as they submitted to His authority. He didn't give them authority until He first said, you come follow me. And they dropped what they were doing and they followed Him. And once they were following Him, then He said, okay, because you have submitted to my authority, now I can give you authority. He didn't give authority to the multitudes because they were not following Him. Does this make sense? So we have to submit to authority so that we can then walk with authority. All right? And to get those things backwards can be pretty dangerous. Again, it's what I did. All right? Don't do what I did. I didn't know how to submit to authority. I just wanted it. Because I saw authority not only as a person, but I saw authority. I interpreted it as power. Power to get people to do what I wanted them to do. And so I wanted more authority. Give me more authority so I can get more people to do what I want them to do. And eventually it made me a mean leader. It made me a forceful. There wasn't a lot of meekness in my body. It made me a forceful leader. I could manipulate, all right? And I could motivate. I just didn't know a whole lot about inspiration, all right? Although there definitely was some of that in my life. There was a lot of manipulation and motivation as well. Authority is a clear mirror that reveals what is in the deepest heart of man. Give someone authority and watch what they do with it. Okay? I'll let you know right now, loud voices are simply a sign of immature authority. You're trying to force. You're trying to make someone do. Stop it! I said shut up! I said be quiet! Just screaming and yelling, trying to force your opinion onto somebody else, trying to force your actions onto somebody else. Our first encounters with authority usually happens with our parents, as I said earlier. How have you responded to your parents' authority? You know, has that gone well? Have you struggled with your parents' authority? Did you finally get away from your parents going, okay, I don't have to deal with that anymore? And then all of a sudden maybe you found the same problems with a boss, or all of a sudden maybe problems with a fiance or boyfriend, girlfriend, or a husband or wife or something like that. It doesn't go away. We have to deal with this issue of authority. How about your teachers? How about your boss at work? How about your coaches? How about the police? How have you done with submitting to that authority? Do you only obey the authority and submit to it if the authority is in the room? Are you like I used to be? You're driving down the road and all of a sudden you see a cop and you slow down really quick because you're going like 20 miles over the speed limit? You know? That's a kindergarten thing, by the way. If you remember, teacher walking out of the room, you're doing everything. Teacher walks back in and you scurry really quick to get back in place. That's kind of what we do a lot of times with authority. We think that if it's going to see us and if we could get in trouble, then we'll obey it. But if we don't think we can get in trouble or not going to get found out, then we do what we want to do. We push the boundaries out because we have become our own authority. So, each of these authorities are put into place to help you learn how to submit. We must learn how to submit. Unfortunately, many of us just don't get it. We grow up with the desire to fight the authority and get sarcastic, and you're not going to do I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do because I know better. I'm going to be the one on the throne, not you. You guys, this idea just doesn't fit in the kingdom of heaven. And to be a disciple of Christ, to be a follower of Christ, you got to get the right person on the throne. Now, you might sit there and go, oh, well, God's on the throne in my life. Okay, that's good. But who are you submitted to here on earth that you are following what they're telling you to do without kicking and screaming and griping and complaining? You know? We'll get into that when we get into your F3 lesson. All right? Your F3 lesson's talking about how to walk and how to live in the kingdom of heaven and not just think. So this authority shows up when we try to grab power from somebody else, whether it be a teacher when we're really young or our parents when we're really young, and we want something and they don't give it to us or they take something away from us, and boom, all of a sudden authority has a face. And I now have the right to judge that authority. And I can get mad and I can gripe. If not disciplined by our parents, we can continue with our wrong perception of authority as we grow and get older. And that perception that we had with mom and dad is transferred right onto our teachers, is transferred right onto coaches, is transferred right onto policemen, is transferred into anybody that comes into our life as an authority. We can continue to resist authority as we put it into our system of checks and balances to decide if it's something that we want to obey or not. Again, I've taken the position of authority, this delegated authority that is God ordained, and I've put a face on it, and now I feel like I have the right to decide whether or not I should submit and obey. As a result, we don't learn what authority is, and all we have come to understand is who authority is. You guys, that's huge right there. We don't understand what authority is. All we've come to understand is who authority is. This is quite a trap. This is an ingenious trap by the enemy. The enemy's plan is that we become our own authority. And that's why it can be so dangerous to push the boundaries. And that's why it's so vital in this idea of personal development. And our first steps in discipleship training has to be character and discipline. Do I have enough character and discipline to keep within the boundaries and submit to the boundaries? Or am I going to say, I know better, I know what's best, and begin to push out and make myself my own authority? My parents try to train me up, and I interpret that as them telling me what to do. You know? My teachers try to steer me in the right direction, and I think they are trying to be mean to me and make me do what they want me to do. I don't want to obey them because they don't know what's best. I know what's best. Oh, this can be difficult. How limited we've become when we have reduced authority to a person and then made the decision on our own. Because you see, then all of a sudden we're introduced to this guy named Jesus. Jesus wants to be the king in our life. Jesus wants to be the ultimate authority in our life. But because we've never understood what authority is, we think that we have the right to respond to Jesus in a certain way. Oh yeah, I want to give up all these bad things. Yeah, I want to give up that. No, I don't want to give that thing up. That's a good thing. Sorry, I almost gave you the good thing there. Okay, yeah, that's some bad stuff. Yeah, take that. That's good. Oh, okay, maybe I'll take this one back too. Okay, thanks. Been good working with you. You know, and we want to hold certain things back from the Lord. And here it is. Not only do we want to do that, but here's the key. We think that we can do that and still grow in relationship with Jesus. Because we've reduced this whole thing down to just some tasks that we need to perform rather than a relationship with the King. So, yeah, I'm going to church and I'm doing this over here. I'm doing some good things. I've got this many good things and this many bad things, and I'm doing more good than bad. So I think things are going well, and you know, I just really get all whacked in my thinking. And because I'm thinking wrongly, I begin to act wrongly. So it's interesting. Jesus knew the disciples were in this place too. He knew that what was coming up in the future is he was going to have to give them authority. He was going to give them authority, but he had to prepare them for it. All right? So we've got this story in the Bible where the disciples are grumbling at each other. They're getting upset at each other because James and John have gotten their mom to go to Jesus, and they were right there with her, but they got their mom to go to Jesus and go, hey, Jesus, you think my two boys can sit on the right and left side of you when you come into your kingdom? You know? They wanted to make sure that they got these positions of authority because that's how they saw. If I could get a level of position over everybody else, then I'll be able to tell them what to do. And so Jesus asked them a quick question. I love this. Can you drink from the cup that I drink? They go, sure, yeah, we can. They had no idea what they were talking about. They didn't even know what the cup was, you know. Later on, Jesus says, remember he was in the garden? He says, Lord, if this cup can pass over me, please let it, but not my will, but your will. The cup was his crucifixion. The cup was him sacrificing himself. So when he was saying, can you drink the cup I drink? Sure, we can. They had no idea what they were saying yes to. But then you turn around, and all the other disciples are griping and complaining because those guys, who do they think they are? And Jesus goes, okay, you're all off. None of you are thinking right. First of all, these two yahoos think that they can get a position of authority and make everybody do what they want them to do. You guys are upset because now you're going to have to submit to their authority, and you don't want to submit to their authority. All of you are thinking wrong about this thing. In fact, you're thinking the same way that the Pharisees, the people here on earth, they take authority and they lord it over them. I've got a picture here really quick. This is an idea here of a pyramid. You remember who built the pyramids? Okay? Egyptians. All right, very good. Actually, the Jews. All right, the Jews built the pyramids. The slaves built the pyramids. And this is a great picture of how a lot of times we look at authority here in our culture. We see it as a pyramid or a ladder or some type of a step. And we try to work up the ladder of authority and we try to get to the top. The problem with this picture is how many people get to sit at the top? You know? Only one. Only one gets to sit at the top. And that person up here at the very top is not very interested in getting out of that position. So when you're down here and trying to work your way up, what you have to do is claw and knock people off so you can move up the ladder and get to the top. You guys, this is slave mentality. And this, unfortunately, is how so often authority happens here on earth. We try to get on top, and then we lord it over and treat people like slaves. You know? This person treats this person like a slave because they are beneath them. You guys, as a leader, you will always treat people like you see them. The way you see them is how you'll treat them. So take a look here. Down at the bottom, if you see them as slaves, you'll treat them as slaves. And you'll keep them down. You won't let them rise up. You'll say things in your attitude, and because you think of them a certain way, it'll come out of your mouth how you see them as slaves. Hey, will you do this, do this, do this. Go here, go there, do that. And this is, there's a level of authority there, but you're treating people like slaves. Now, you can get out of that. Again, slaves never get to enter into the house, They're always outside the house. There's no relationship to the family other than they just do what the family tells them to do. Now you've got this next level. This is a servant. If you see the people as your servants, you'll treat them like your servants. Okay? If you don't understand authority, you'll treat people like servants. Servants still, they can go into the house, but they still have no place in the house. They don't live in the house, but they get to go in. Does that make sense? How you see them is how you treat them. This whole idea of authority. How will you treat people? You'll treat them the way that you see them. And then we've got this thing here. If you see them like soldiers, you'll treat them like soldiers. All right? Up to, up to, up to. You'll bark out orders and expect people to follow your orders because you're in charge. Yes, I'm the captain, and you are my soldiers, and you must do. You'll just see them as workers. You're here to do what I'm telling you to do. But man, we want to continue to move up. The reason why it gets smaller and smaller and smaller as we move up here is simply because there are fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer people that are willing to sacrifice to reach these levels. Remember, we talked about this with John Maxwell's different levels of leadership. Here, if you treat them or if you see them as sons, then you'll treat them like sons. They have a place in the house. They have a name. They have a position. They have a respect. They have an honor. You know, what is it Jesus wants to call us? Sons. You are no longer slaves. You are now sons. So Jesus looks at his disciples and goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. You guys were not meant to lord authority over them. But if you want to be a great leader, then you need to learn to be a servant. You need to learn how to submit to authority. So when you get authority, you'll know how to wield it. And then finally, just for this case here, up here at the very top, the Lord even draws us to this wonderful place called friends. Not only are we sons and daughters, but we are His friends. So, a question for you. Do you have a measure of authority? In the experience that you're doing in the furnace right now, have you been given a measure of responsibility and authority? How are you doing with that? How are you doing with the people that are quote unquote under you, that are in your care, that you are leading? How are you treating them? Do you treat them like slaves? Do you scream and yell, bark at them? Do you get mad at them? And when you get mad at them, you kind of treat them bad? Where are you in this? Again, this idea of submission to authority can be difficult for us. We're going to spend 2 more sessions talking about this. And because it's so important that we get this idea of submission to authority so that we can walk daily in the mindset of the kingdom of heaven. Okay? It's all about learning how to submit to the King. Hopefully this has been good for you. Hopefully you're willing to open up and allow this message of submission to authority to sneak into your heart without resisting it and without pushing it back. You guys, we've got to walk through the gate of submission to authority. So, bless you guys. Look forward to seeing you in session 15.
How you think is the most important thing about you.